We are live here with Renters Radio. We're back. Neither rain nor sleet nor snow can stop us from bringing you the latest in local activist news. We have a big show tonight. I'm your host, Lauren Pespiza. This is my co host.
Evan George, what's up?
Hey, how's it going?
Doing great.
Thanks for the ride.
Oh, my pleasure. Shout out to Jeep.
Yeah, shout out to Jeep. Maybe we'll get a sponsorship.
Getting it done in the snow.
We've got a lot of things to talk about actually tonight. One of them being a really important and timely issue, which is making everyone upset, which is not really a renters issue, but it's a major environmental topic right now. And it's affecting people in Weymouth, especially. We're talking about the Weymouth Compressor, which actually is going forth with the construction tomorrow. And we have a guest with us on the phone, Professor Nathan Phillips, which we'll get to go into the details of why this is going to be so harmful for the environment and why we should do everything we can to support the activists against it. We're also going to talk about a few things later, one of them being the Harvard strike. The grad students strike, or the grad students union are walking out on strike tomorrow as well. So it's a big day of action this week. And we're going to play an interview with them and discuss why that's important as well. We also have our usual renters horror stories and some more sexy taxes via
Always.
Evan. So let's get right into it. Once again, I'm Lauren, and there's Evan, and we have our guest, Professor Nathan Phillips, on the phone, and we are good to go.
Nathan, how's it going?
Hey, how are you? It's great to be on, Evan and Lauren.
Hi, thank you for coming on. So one of the things about this Weymouth compressor that I've been reading so much about is that it's so environmentally unsafe and toxic, and I kind of did a deep dive into it, but I want to hear from you exactly what the residents of Weymouth are taking issue with and sort of what your background has been in fighting it this whole time, and how long has this been going on?
Yeah, so it's been going on for 5 years now since it was proposed, and there's a range of issues involved. One is the danger of explosions, and the company that wants to build this Enbridge has a really bad safety record. In fact, on August 1st of this year, one of their pipelines exploded and a woman in Kentucky was killed. And so they've had a number of very dangerous situations. So there's that aspect. And then the compressor that they want to build is actually intended to vent pollution right into the air. And that contains a bunch of carcinogens and neurotoxins. And this is a community that's already overburdened with pollutants, and they'd be getting burdened with even more. So there's the safety of explosions, there's the toxic air pollution, and then finally, there is the climate impact, which the carbon emissions associated with this compressor, were it to go in, would enable the equivalent emissions of 1.1 million motor vehicles. And that's about 45% of all the registered vehicles in Massachusetts. So it's like a carbon bomb.
So that sounds pretty terrible. Why are they trying to build this? What is this? What is the purpose of this compressor?
So every 40 to 100 miles, these very high pressure transmission gas pipelines that are going across the country, kind of like the interstate highway system, but they need to push that gas every so often, and so that it keeps going, basically down the line. So that's what compressor stations do. And Weymouth being on the coast is an indication of what they want to do with this. They want to push it. It's kind of the end of the line at the end of the coast, and they want to push it across Boston Harbor and head it north into a pipeline that goes up to Canada, where there's an export terminal so that they can load that gas, they can liquefy it, turn it into liquefied natural gas, put it on ships, and then send it out onto the global gas market, which is in a glut right now.
So this isn't even going towards energy for Massachusetts residents. This is going towards international energy supply?
Yes, that's right. And in fact, the only buyers, corporate customers of this gas in Massachusetts recently just defected from it. So Eversource was the largest single what's called precedent agreement customer. They signed this 4 years ago, this agreement to buy the gas, and WBUR broke a story a couple weeks ago that they basically said they don't need the compressor because they've already got enough gas. And also National Grid, the other big customer in Massachusetts, also said that they don't need the compressor to fulfill their gas needs for Massachusetts over the next 14 years. So there's no domestic reason for this. This is all to support the corporate profits of Enbridge, which is based in Canada, and essentially a global, market for gas.
Okay, and so one of the things I was reading on was that this used to be referred to by a different name, which was the Spectra Energy.
That's right. So kind of midway through this 5-year process, so this all started in like 2015, early 2015, and by, I think it was 2017, Enbridge bought out Spectra Energy. So Enbridge is based in Canada. Spectra was based in Houston, but now it's the parent ownership is Enbridge.
Okay, and why is this allowed to be built with such a terrible safety record, where it seems like everyone, even the mayor of Weymouth, has spoken out against it? You were showing me some letters that were shared from the mayor to Charlie Baker. Why has this been allowed to go on and be built when it seems like there's so many citizens against it?
Yeah, it's pretty incredible that this is actually going forward. It makes no sense on so many different levels, except for corporate profits and the capture of officials who should be defending the environment for Massachusetts, but are instead working on behalf of corporate entities. So that's the only thing that, is the reason that this is going forward. It's kind of like that fable, the Emperor's New Clothing, where everyone can look at this site, and when you tell people that they want to put a 7,700 horsepower compressor that will periodically vent raw uncombusted gas right there next to all of those homes, daycare centers, it's astounding that this is even, we're watching, such a process go forward. It's just really quite amazing.
And Nathan, I wanted to follow up with that. Because what Lauren was just saying, I mean, the Weymouth mayor opposes this, Quincy mayor opposes it, Braintree mayor opposes it, even Representative Stephen Lynch, who I have never agreed with him on a single topic, he opposes this. So does Ed Markey, so does the Attorney General. So when you say that there are officials that are letting this go through, how is this actually going through, and who should be held responsible for it?
Yeah, well, there's really just one official who is claiming not to be able to stop anything, and that's Governor Charlie Baker. So really, there's overwhelming bipartisan opposition to this, and that includes the mayor of Weymouth is, I think, a Republican, registered Republican. The state senator Patrick O'Connor that represents Weymouth is a Republican. And actually, more Republican senators signed a letter percentage-wise opposing the compressor than even the Democrats did in the Massachusetts State Senate. So the opposition is overwhelming, and it's not partisan at all. It's just Charlie Baker, who claims not to have any power to do or say anything in opposition to the compressor. I'm very concerned about the financial conflicts of interest, which I'm happy to talk about as well.
I'm actually really curious about that as well. I did end up reading an article by, who was it? It was Itai Vardy, I might be messing up that name, about how his former energy and environmental secretary ended up going to work for some consulting firm. Is that what you're referring to?
Well, there's a wide range of conflicts of interest, financial conflicts of interest, including but not limited to the one that you mentioned. So, the one that kind of is just so obviously glaring to me is that the law firm that represents Enbridge, their executives donated $83,000 to Charlie Baker's campaign. So they're they're representing the applicant for this and simultaneously donating $83,000 to Baker's campaign. The environmental consultant TRC companies based in Lowell, that's the one that you made reference to just now. They work for Enbridge. They're a consultant for Enbridge, and they donated somewhere around $30,000 to Governor Baker as well. So these conflicts of interest are pervasive. That's just one part of it. Another part is Governor Baker is directly invested in fossil fuel companies, including ExxonMobil, which owns part of the pipeline that the Weymouth Compressor would actually feed across Boston Harbor, called the Maritimes and Northeast Pipeline.
So has he made any statements at all regarding this after being called out on it for seems like years?
He's consistently said that he has no role, he has no power to do anything, that it's a federal issue, and that's manifestly incorrect. There were about a half dozen state permits that needed to be passed, and at every single one of them, there were ample opportunities for the safety, the health, and the environmental or climate issues to have put a halt to the process. So it's not true that the Baker administration had no say or no agency in this process, but that's been his consistent line, is not having any authority or any power or even an opinion. He's never even said whether he thinks it's a good idea or not.
Well, it's a good idea for his wallet. And I just want to say that for Charlie Baker to claim to have no ability to affect this, and at the same time being able to do things like ban vapes and ban menthol cigarettes in one fell swoop, he clearly can do whatever he wants and does. So, that's just, I call BS on that. I think everybody is in your organization as well.
Yeah, and every other elected official, I guess they could have made the same point as well. They could have said, like, well, I can't do anything, I'm powerless. But no one else has. It's only been Governor Baker. So the question is, why is he so especially powerless, in this matter?
Well, sounds like he has a lot to profit for.
And speaking about other ways of holding Charlie Baker accountable, was there anything that the House legislature could have done? Was there any bills that were being considered that maybe would have stopped something like this?
In the last session, there was a bill that would have really created a limitation on the building of compressor stations in Massachusetts, but that bill did not succeed in the last session. In this session, there is a bill that would require air monitoring, improved air monitoring, but that's a bit too little too late at this point. And at the federal level, Ed Markey has introduced a bill that would basically deny compressors that are intended for export of gas rather than domestic use. But again, we're in a situation where construction may be actually starting tomorrow. So those are too little too late at this point.
So basically, have all options to stop this been exhausted at this point, and we just watch this construction go forward and do nothing? What are people trying to do to stop this at this point?
Well, the thing that is so inspiring to me is I've moved from being kind of a scientist, cheerleader kind of from the side for the opposition FRAX, the Four River residents against the compressor station, to becoming more actively involved, and then finally becoming a participant in an appeal hearing. But what I've found over these 5 years as I've gotten to know that community is that they are resolute. They are not backing down. They are not giving up. They'll never give up. They're going to fight this as long as it possibly takes. And there's a couple things that, oddly enough, I know it may sound crazy, but I still think there's a pathway to win this thing for a couple of reasons. One is that, as I mentioned, it's kind of like the emperor's new clothing, that it's such an obviously crazy place to be putting a compressor station. It's in a spotlight. It's right next to the Four River Bridge. It's in such clear view of everyone, and it's constrained. It's kind of waterlocked, if you will, with very limited egress and access. And so, in terms of kind of slowing down their attempt to excavate the coal ash, which is a toxic foundation on which the compressor would be built, they need to move 1,100 dump truck loads of toxic, arsenic-laden coal ash out of that site. And I think that the public is in a position to do a lot to slow and impede what I call an illegal process of spreading toxic material across the state. They want to truck 1,100 dump truck loads of arsenic-containing coal ash across Massachusetts into a landfill in Rochester, New Hampshire, as well as another landfill in Westminster, Massachusetts, which is close to Fitchburg. And there's hardly any information. I think somewhere in their plan they talk about putting a tarp on the trucks.
Oh, geez.
But this is toxic material, and it's apparent that the state is not doing anything to protect the environment, protect the people of Massachusetts. So I actually think that it's incumbent now upon the people of Massachusetts to protect their own environment and slow and impede those dump trucks from getting out of that site and spreading that toxic material around.
Are you talking about a blockade?
You can call it a blockade, impede, slow, whatever. I also think that science can play a role in sampling for arsenic that may come off of those trucks, and to provide as evidence that this is happening. So I think that preventing the spread of this toxic material is something that people should consider joining. I've put out on Twitter the routes that I think would probably be the ones that they would attempt to take from the compressor site to Rochester, New Hampshire, the turnkey landfill. That happens to be the landfill that was shipping PFAS-laden water to a Lowell water treatment plant that was in the Globe a few weeks ago. So it's really one of the real injustices in this whole thing is moving this toxic material around. And so, I think it's fully justified to push back on that.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Is that something that you could see happening? Is that something that we're going to be seeing soon? And if so, how can people support that?
Well, I'm someone who gets around by bike usually, but I'm aware of how easily traffic is gridlocked, and lawfully, safely gridlocked, if you will. And I think that there can be safe and legal ways to slow these trucks down, to create congestion around these trucks. In fact, it'll make things safer because it'll reduce the chances of arsenic blowing and going airborne if they are slowed way down. There's precedent for this. In fact, my friend Kanan in East Boston did a podcast recently and shared with me the story of Mary Ellen Welch in East Boston and what they called the Maverick Mothers, who basically blocked dump trucks in East Boston that were going too fast and speeding, related to the expansion of the Logan Airport. And so we know that some of these tactics can actually be, effective. So that's one of the reasons why, it's still, even though the state has kind of washed its hands of this whole thing and abdicated its responsibility, there's still ways in which we can really, make it very hard for them to make any progress on this site. There's a couple other things. One, one thing that gives me hope in this is a comment that Dr. Sandra Steingraber made when she visited Boston. She's had a long history of activism in the environment, pushing back against fracking in New York, and they won a huge battle in Seneca Lake to prevent a gas storage facility from going in there in upstate New York. But she told us that all the permits had been granted, and they really started their campaign of nonviolent, peaceful resistance after all of those permits had been granted, and they won. So even though all of the permits have been granted, I believe there's still a way to win.
I hope you're right. So are we going to be seeing trucks go down there tomorrow and start digging? Is that kind of the set date, or is the weather going to affect it? We don't know.
Yeah, we don't know, but I mean, it is weather dependent. I understand there has been some sightings of what look like police and maybe private security down on the site in the last day, even today. So we're all waiting and watching to see what happens. But they did declare last week that they were going to start construction tomorrow. That was what they said, and so we have to take it seriously, even if they don't actually show up. But this is going to be a long, drawn-out process if it goes, and it's going to be contested every single step of the way. So nothing is going to be easy for them to make any progress. We're heading into winter. That's going to be a very tough situation for Enbridge and its contractors to work in those conditions. And what we really need, is we need overwhelming numbers of people to say no to this. And if that happens, we can stop this compressor station. It's another lesson that we've learned from successful actions and campaigns in the past is that overwhelming public rejection can actually win. Ultimately, the regulatory and legal process that governed this was compromised in so many different ways, and it's apparent that this is a political process, and overwhelming public opposition can essentially win the political battle. And so that's what we need right now. And I'm so thankful for you to be giving an opportunity for me to talk about this issue, and that you're raising the issue, because we need more and more of that, especially here in the next days and weeks.
Well, we'll definitely be following it. For our listeners out there and our viewers, the website that you folks are organizing around is nocompressor.com. It looks like there's a mailing list there. People can join up to see how they can support you. Are there any other ways that people can get in touch and organize, and besides going down there? Or should they be going down there? Are there actions down there being planned, events or anything?
Well, yeah, so definitely go to nocompressor.com. There's a pledge form. You can add your name. The other thing you can do is talk to your neighbors, talk about what a bad idea it is, and form affinity groups. Form in your own communities or the people you hang out with. You can form your own little group, and you can join with the opposition as it occurs on the site itself on occasion. Stay in touch with the fracs people at nocompressor.com, or you can go somewhere in Boston, like to the Department of Environmental Protection, and tell them it's not okay, or the governor's office. You can go to the State House and get a group together and visit your legislators. So there's a lot of things that can be done in a lot of different places to push back on the compressor.
So tell Charlie Baker, go over there, talk to him. We don't want this compressor. And if you can get to Weymouth, go to nocompressor.com to join the fight against this environmental disaster affecting Weymouth. I know Evan might have some affinity groups.
Oh, absolutely. Boston DSA has been organizing around this for months and months. So if you'd like to come link up with us, I'm sure we have a lot of actions planned around this. And I know we went a little late, Professor, but really thank you so much for coming on. This was incredible.
Yeah, this was really
Yeah,
informative.
Boston DSA has been awesome. I'm so thankful for the support. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you, and good luck.
Okay, you too. Bye.
And that was Professor Nathan Phillips of BU.
Yes, I
BU.
believe so. And from the nocompressor.com, the FRRACS it's kind of a long name, for River
Fark.
Nah, for Frax. I don't know how to say anything.
But I mean, this is the stuff though that it just drives people crazy. I mean, like I was reading stuff while I was speaking from the Greater Boston Physicians of Social Responsibility, saying the compressor station, even by the data provided by the company itself, is likely to worsen the health and safety of everyone already at risk.
Yeah, there wasn't any reports that really made it look safe. It just seems like Charlie Baker didn't really care to read them or ignore them.
And I mean, one of the most outlandish parts of that whole thing was as he was discussing, this is all about piping, I'll just call it energy, to other locations. It's not even like this is going to, the energy is being consumed by the people of Weymouth. This is what you see in like any of our resource policies, is like where the energy actually goes. The waste of that energy is always in like low-income communities. They're putting this by the coast that has a history of flooding. What's going to happen 2 months from now when we have a high tide at the wrong time?
Right.
The dumbest, I don't want to curse this early in the show, the dumbest things imaginable.
Well, it's not dumb for the people making money on it.
No, it's just mind-boggling.
Yeah, it's just unfortunate that the people of Weymouth haven't been respected. Yeah, I would be.
And they go out to meetings, and this is why people kind of lose faith, and they say, why even bother voting? They show up at those board room hearings that they plan at like 11 a.m. on these awkward days. They show up, nobody listens. There's representatives that say, yeah, nothing we can do. We don't know. And that's why I wanted him to like just to push a little bit and just be like, well, who could you actually direct this to? Because at the end of the day, this is being decided by people in the room. And it's Charlie
It sounds
Baker.
like the people in the room. Yeah, the rest of the people in the room are also against it. There's a huge list of people against it. It's just it's in Baker's hands, and any sort of disaster will be in his hands too.
Yeah, that's just horrible. Well, hopefully enough people will organize, because this is, no pun intended, a very toxic issue that nobody wants to touch. And so if you do get enough people in the streets, and he was right, blockades have a very long history, especially in Boston, around like, no, you are not going to bring toxic waste. And this is being planned by a school. That was even mentioned tonight. This plant is going by a school.
Oh, man.
Really hope all the parents in that area, and it's up to us to also organize with them. Be like, no. Like, you're just not doing this.
Yeah, that's a huge risk. I hope that they stay safe, too. He mentioned private security being out there and, more police. I hope everyone stays safe, and that if anyone does get arrested, that the Mass Bail Fund helps them out.
Yeah, absolutely.
We should link them up.
And now, do you want to share more sad stories of renters?
Have to.
Yeah.
I have to.
Yeah.
Let me just check and see if I got anything else going on. We have to plug ourselves. So, if you liked what we did today or not, follow us, like, subscribe on our Facebook. We are at Renters Radio. We're also on Twitter, Instagram, yada yada.
Give us 5 stars on.
Yeah, we have a podcast. We'll be putting
iTunes.
it out. Yeah, we'll put it out on iTunes, Spotify. We're also Renters Radio there. Like, subscribe, give reviews, 5 stars, all of that. We have a Patreon, patreon.com/rentersradio. For just $4 a month, you can help make this all possible. And, we also have an email address, rentersradio@gmail.com. Submit stories, submit anything. This is your show, too. And I want to thank Herb. I want to thank Evan. I want to thank our guests today for a really good show. We'll see what the snow looks like when we get outside. So till next week, I don't know what we're doing yet, but we'll figure it out.
We always do.
We always do. So have a good week, guys. Stay strong. Solidarity.
Later.